Hey, Beau Lofgren, how you doing, man?
Hi, is this Jeff?
It is.
Hi, Jeff. Wow, this is so nice to meet you. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. No, boy, this is why I just love this community, just because of just meeting great people, and I'm sure you're one of them. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you more. Thanks for reaching out. I obviously have had a little more time on my hands, so yeah, I did catch a couple of your podcasts. Pretty cool stuff.
Cool, cool. Thank you. Yeah, well, no, I saw your story on the old Facebook there, and man, oh man, you want to tell folks what happened to you?
Yeah, no, I can do that quick. Yes. First of all, thanks again, Jeff, having me here. And it's yeah, my name is Beau. I'm married, have three kids. I teach in a small school district in Minnesota. The best way to describe where I live, if you've heard of Fargo, North Dakota, I live about 25 miles east of there on the Minnesota side. So our community, we have about 2,000 people, born and raised in this town, and so very happy to be able to teach here. So, but anyway, yeah, I teach sixth grade, and every spring we take a field trip with the sixth grade kids. It's kind of their rite of passage to get to high school. We do a fundraiser, they do a spaghetti supper, and they raise money. And on a normal year, we would go to Minneapolis. We would go to a Twins game, go to St. Paul to see the Capitol, check out the Mall of America, and see some other sites down there. But with a lot of the civil unrest stuff going on down there with the George Floyd trial was going on at that time, our school district decided that we would need to find an alternative place to go, which makes total sense, right? So Duluth is another place, a high tourist attraction. There's lots of things to see there, places to go. And a lot of kids haven't been that part of Minnesota. It's beautiful along the North Shore. So yeah, we, concocted a pretty good field trip of some sights to see and things. And yeah, I guess long story short, yeah, we went to this state park. It's called Gooseberry Falls. And when you bring kids anywhere, whether you're, you know, you drop them off at school or you bring them anywhere, it's kind of like cockroaches when the lights turn off. Everybody just scatters, right? They're kids. And so, yeah, basically, when you go there, there's lots of different sets of waterfalls, and the plan was just for kids and teachers just to kind of bring kids here, there, and take pictures of them. And we had about 80 students with us, so just that kind of gives you a picture of how many kids were with us. And yeah, there were just some students that were kind of wait because at the base of some of the falls, you can kind of go and wade in the water, and it's like knee high or maybe waist high at the most. And just some kids were wandering in the water, and which they've done in the past. So I went. I told my brother who was with on the trip, big APBA player himself. He was on the trip. We teach together, and yeah, I said, Ben, I'm going to go and just check out what these kids are doing. Just make sure they're okay. And yeah, long story short, there was a young boy that just had slipped and was starting to go down the river and was clinging onto a rock. And I jumped in and tried to help him as best I could, but the current was too strong. And so yeah, I was holding on to the boy, and then once we were both. I mean, we weren't gonna be able to get out. I let go of him just because I didn't want to land on the poor kid. That's what I was thinking. We're going to fall this 30-foot drop and I would land on him. But no, I was able to kind of grab him. I was holding him by the hood of his sweatshirt, thinking that if I grabbed him by the hand, if I grabbed him by his shirt, at least he'd have both of his hands to kind of grab onto something else, while I was trying to pull him out. But the current was too strong. So at the last minute, I twisted his hood of his sweatshirt. So then at least he was, instead of going on his stomach, he would go on his back, so he'd be like riding down like a water slide. At least he'd see where he was going. Uh, yeah, it's crazy. So no, anyway, the next thing I remember is I'm laying on the bottom of these falls, and I see the boy, and he's kind of walking around like a Looney Tunes character, seeing stars. But at that moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's alive, like he's fine. And Me, on the other hand, I suffered more of the brunt of the injuries, but I'm just thankful that I'm here. And lots of good people, a lot of good EMT people, a good Samaritan that came and helped. One of the bus drivers helped me out, and great people at the hospitals, and now with my recovery and things. Yeah, I've been blessed with so many great people, and either God doesn't want me, or I'm too bad for Satan to go to hell. Either one, I don't know where that puts me, but I would like to think that, yeah, God wasn't ready for me yet, that he's still got more work for me to do. I'm a firm believer of Jesus Christ, and I'm just thankful that I'm here. And yeah, that's kind of the short version of it, Jeff. But I will tell you that the healing has been good. Physically, I'll know a lot more here in a couple of weeks, whether or not I need to have surgery or not. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that my brace here has done its thing, and I won't need surgery. So there'll be some pretty intense physical therapy just because I've lost so much strength, but that's, I'll take that over, being a vegetable in a bed any day. So I'm just thankful I can walk and do a lot of things that I didn't think I would be able to when I was sitting at the bottom of that waterfall. I thought for sure I was a dead man. So yeah, and this is where APBA comes in, where I've been playing APBA for quite a few years. Well, not quite a few, but about 10, 11 years. And I'm kind of a hot and cold player. I've got 3 young kids, and I'll go through stretches where I'll play pretty hardcore for a couple, 2-3 months, and then the game sits for a couple, 2-3 months, but it's always there. But within the last month, I was able to finally get some strength and talk to my wife, and she was, yeah, let's move the table up in the bedroom, and whatever. And so that, at least now, that's been a big joy in my life, that I can play some APBA. So there you go.
Well, thank goodness you're here, you're healing, and thank goodness for your wife being very understanding in the APBA world, bringing she brought your stuff into the room to play. Yeah. So and yet, all that said, you're still in the middle. I think you said about 40 games left in a 76 Twins master game replay.
Yeah.
Why the Twins? Obviously, Minnesota.
Well, yeah, I'll kind of just tell you a little bit about APBA. It's funny because through my wife, that's how I first came to play APBA. I'm 40 years old. I'll be 41 here on Sunday. And I think a lot of the gamers that are my age, I know I'm a young buck in terms of APBA. Most guys are older than me. I wear that with a badge of honor, and it's been fun to share that with, people that are like my dad's age or in between. But anyway, like a lot of people my age, I grew up in the video game era, right? I played a lot of Nintendo. I played Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, then PlayStation. But growing up too, we played the first baseball board game I can remember playing was it was called Championship Baseball. It was a card or dice game with some cards. It was just based on the 1983 season. My brother and I played that all the time. And then we graduated to the All-Star baseball game with the discs from Cadico Company. If you've ever seen that with the discs, yep. Played that, and big football game, because I know you're a football guy. NFL Strategy. Have you ever played NFL Strategy before?
Have not. I think it's in the stack to be played.
Okay. We got my dad one year for Christmas. It came in a briefcase. It's like a fake leather briefcase. It says NFL on it. And yeah, I actually played that game. I played that game with students in my classroom, and they just love it. It's great. But anyway, no, then I played a lot of video games and things. And then I had our first son was born in 2009. And then I'm like, video games are great, but I don't know if I want to be that dad that I want him seeing me playing video games. I want to, show them, hey, board games. I grew up playing, all kinds of stuff, Risk and Sorry and Scrabble, well, you name it. And so my wife, her uncle, his name is Doug. He was the same age as my father-in-law. For many years at the lake cabin, he'd go off into his camper and he'd play this game with big boards and dice and these cards. And he said it was a baseball game, but again, I'm in my mid-20s. I'm still playing, my PlayStation 3 games and stuff. And I'm like, whatever. this looks boring. And so finally he said, you got to play this game. He gave me a copy of his master game and basic game, and he gave me the 1987 set, which of course was a big year for the Twins. And the kind of the defining moment where I was like, all right, I'm going to play APBA was when I remember watching the Vikings, one of their many historic playoff losses, when Brett Favre they lost to the Saints. And I'm like, all right, the Vikings season, they're not going to win. They're not going to the Super Bowl again. And I forced myself, I'm going to learn how to play this game. So long story short, I just jumped into the master game because I read the basic game and master game. And I'm like, this, and I never heard of APBA baseball. I grew up, I'd never heard of it. And I'm like, I can't believe this game exists. And, here, after reading the board game and figuring it out, I, do a Google search. Hey, geez, they still make this game. There's a website. There's all kinds of people that play. And my biggest gripe with video games was I wanted to play with old teams, like the new video games. You can't play like, okay, you buy Madden. You can't play the 85 Bears against the 90 Giants. You can't do that. So, that's what really got me into APBA. And so, yeah, I've done several replays. I do have a blog. I don't write on it very often. The blog is Minnesota APBA. That's what it's called. And I kind of I've written on it for the last 5-6 years. I don't post very much. More so, I just do it for me, like, so I can remember what I've done. You know what I mean? But to get to your question with the 76 Twins, I came prepared. My mother-in-law bought me this book about Lyman Bostock. I'm sure you're familiar with his life and story a little bit, or no? Or
not really as much, no.
Okay, well, I've heard of him growing up. Like I said, he played in the 70s, and he was kind of an up-and-coming outfielder for the Twins. And I knew he had died like in his fourth season, but I never really knew the story behind it. But yeah, he played for the Twins for 3 seasons. And then of course the Twins at that time were really, budget. They could never really keep their big stars. And so he signed a big contract with the Angels. And at the end of his first season with the Angels, he was murdered. He was playing in Chicago and went to go visit some relatives in Gary, Indiana. And yeah, he was shot cold-blooded. And so my mother-in-law bought me this book over Christmas a couple of years ago, and I read it, and I'm like, I got to do 76 Twins. I looked at the Twins. I'm like, I like to do replays where I like to throw a couple what if wrinkles into things. And I like to try to pick teams that were really close to, they didn't win it all, but they got close or were a few games out of maybe making the playoffs. The Twins that season were like, in real life, were 5 games out of the playoffs. So my thought process was, okay, let's see if I want to learn more about Lyman Bostock. It was Tony Oliva's last season. There was another player on that team named Danny Thompson, who was a shortstop, and he ended up dying of leukemia the following winter. So it's just like, okay, man, maybe I can get these guys to glory. Gene Mock was the manager. He was a hard luck manager too. So, and just, yeah, I've not done anything with 1970s sports. So that kind of, all those things kind of got me to playing the 76 season.
So, yeah, I mean, if you're 40, going to be 41, happy birthday in advance on Sunday.
Yeah, thank you.
So so really you're more of an 80s and up sports guy then, right? I mean, for the
my background, the thing is with that 87 season that I got. So of course, I was a first grader when the Twins won it. And then, but I have an older brother, my older brother, Ben, and, you can't do everything your older brother likes. So because I'm like, okay, I got to find another team other than the Twins. So I'm a huge Oakland A's fan. And of course, 1988 rolls around and, the A's get to the World Series, their first of 3 years they got there. And so I actually replayed the 87 Twins or the A's. I replayed the 87 A's of that season because they were really good. The Twins beat them in real life, but the A's were like 4 games out. So that was, I've always been a big A's fan and still am to this day. But mostly 80s, 90s. I'd say I follow sports now, but not as much as I did before the kids. I mean, I'll still turn the game on. Of course, it beats working, any sporting event. Olympics, it's been great seeing, water polo and table tennis and all these other, it's just cool. It's fun, but yeah, no, in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, a lot has really changed. But what I like about the 70s stuff is a lot of those players that I maybe followed in the 80s and 90s were just starting out in the 70s. Guys like Robin Yount and not Cal Ripken, but like Paul Molitor, Dave Parker, lots of those players. And then Hank Aaron's, it's his last season in 76. Brooks Robinson. So yeah, it's kind of neat to have some of these old timers, and then the careers of some of the guys that I followed later on when I was a kid that I remember them. So yeah, no, it's just APBA is a great. What I love about APBA is it's you can play it through the years. Like I said, different teams, and what I like about it most is that you can tweak it to however you want it to be. It does say on the box, you're the manager or the coach or whatever. And so that's what's so great about it. And it's a great game. And I'm just fortunate that my uncle-in-law showed it to me a few years ago. And yeah, you had, I'm going to touch a couple people you've had podcasts with. Your last one, Ron Amsh, I know Ron pretty well. He's reached out to me here a couple of times since my accident. I met Ron at the Twin Cities tournaments, here a few years ago, and Ron is he's a rock solid individual. He's a great guy, and he brought a game to one of the tournaments. He brought this dice because he likes to play all kinds of games, like he mentioned in his podcast. But he brought this game called Las Vegas. It's a simple dice game, and you try to get money and things. And we all lost to the tournament, so we're just sitting around, because we're all pouting because we all lost. He's like, hey, I brought this game with. So then, while all the winners were playing in the winners bracket, we were playing this Las Vegas game, and just meeting him now, my brother and Ben and I, we have like probably 10 sets of Las Vegas games that we use at school to teach probabilities. So, and the kids love it. My family loves it. So it's just like, okay, all these new experiences I got just by meeting one person. So Bill Lilly's another one. I got to meet Bill at my first APBA tournament in Twin Cities, and great guy. I love his enthusiasm. Oh my gosh, he's whatever how old he is, 65 or 8 going on 21. The guy's amazing. So I'm so glad I met you and stumbled across this, because yeah, it's been great. So but yeah, 76, yeah, this book here was a big inspiration. And like I said, I'm on the home stretch, and looking forward to getting it done. So
For sure. How about, well, we talk about the APBA community for sure, as you've said, and it's, it's an old game. We've been around a while, and, folks forge these relationships that go on, I mean, decades. These folks have known each other 40, 50 years. So it's really, that's one thing I think that sets the game of APBA apart, is that kind of that institutional knowledge, as you say, passing the game down to folks. And I'm just going to go back to the Oakland A's really quickly, as we talk about weather mods so much. I just wonder if you happen to throw in an earthquake mod for one of those World Series there.
No, the A seasons I've replayed 87, 88, and then 89. And yeah, no, it was a lot of fun replaying those seasons. And what I did with those is I pretty much did the lineups as is, just because I was still kind of getting my feet wet with the game. But yeah, I couldn't believe it. Yeah, that in those games, how with APBA, what I like about APBA is the results are pretty much on par with things when you play a season. But with baseball, especially, one pitch or one at bat can totally change the whole rest of the game. And it's true with APBA too. So you kind of gotta take those things into consideration. But you want it to be realistic, but you want to just play it for what it is. It's a game. And I think if you get bored down in the details too much, it takes the fun out of the game. But I like the master game version just because of all the decision making and things that come into it. Okay, I've got a runner at second base and the ball's hit the left field. Depending on who's playing in left field, do I want to send that runner home, or am I going to play it safe and not send them? So all those decisions that go into it. But speaking of A's, can I do another quick book plug?
Absolutely.
I've had a lot of reading time.
Right.
People want to hear about Billy Martin. This book is called Billy Ball. And I learned a lot about the A's kind of after the 70s dynasty and then before they got big in the 80s. So I learned a lot about Billy Martin too. So, but yeah, no, that's what's great about APBA. And like you said, the relationships and things, and yeah, kind of still being a newbie to the game, meeting all these great people at these tournaments and, online and things. And it's when you try to explain APBA just to any Joe Schmo, they're kind of like, what is this? Like it took 5 years to convince my brother, who's a big sports junkie. He does every fantasy sport league you can think of. And it took me 5 years to finally get him to sit down and roll a game with me. And then once he got hooked, oh my gosh, he is all in. Like he's really big into, I like to do replays. He's really big into trying to find like the best tournament teams. Like he has all these different formulas and he does all these trials with these teams and looks at cards. He's a math teacher, so he really gets into the math stuff. And so he's always going back and forth. Well, what about the 2016 Nationals, or how about the 30 A's or this or whatever? I'm like, oh, okay. And then he'll come over and we'll roll like a best of 7 or something like that, and just laugh and we pretend that we're still kids. That's what I love about it too. It kind of you put everything on pause and you're just focused on the game and just letting everything go for whether it's a half hour or an hour or 2 hours, however long we play. One thing I do want to say, your background, by the way, he's a big Cardinals fan, and I noticed you got some Cardinals stuff in the background there. So, but
Yeah, that's the old official football box, the card box from the 70s. That's really the two of the different approaches you can take. That really, you're a what if guy, he's a what's going to perform guy. So that's how many times have you guys now played head to head? Do you really,
Oh yeah, it's hot and cold. Like we played here series here a couple weeks ago, and he's kind of in the same boat too, because he's got a son that's graduated, and he's just got his first job, but then he's got 2 other kids. He's got a daughter in 3rd grade, and then his youngest son is in kindergarten. So he coaches, I coach. We do a lot of coaching in our town, so it's always time, right? There's never enough time, but anytime we go anywhere, if we're going to the lake or, like the school field trip, had I not taken a trip to the hospital, we would have played some games in the hotel room, when the students went to sleep, that sort of thing. So it's always, every time I'll talk to him later today, and during our conversation, APBA will come up. It's always, on the tip of our tongue, so to speak. So, but yeah, getting him, that was a big thing for me, because Jim Frosch, he's the organizer of the Twin Cities baseball tournament. And he had contacted me, like 6 years ago. And then I'm like, well, I don't want to make the 4-hour drive by myself. I got to find someone to bring with me. So then I was telling my brother about the tournament and telling him about APBA. I'm like, you got to play this game. It's so fun. And then, yeah, that's what kind of got him hooked. So now we look forward to, it's a tournament we go play in every year. And it's always marked on the calendar that, hey, that's a weekend that Ben and I can go do it. And of course, with my wife too, with her uncle showing me the game, she's like, yeah, go ahead. So I have yet to convince her to play a game. So that's a bucket list thing, but we'll see. I'll take what I can get at this point, as long as I can play the game at my leisure when all the other things are crossed off the list. Then let's go.
For sure. Just do want to give a quick shout out. Today is the beginning of the Las Vegas. Speaking of Las Vegas, the 3-day tournament hosted by Chris White out there. Hall of Famer is Pete Simonelli's out there. He's kind of the godfather of our channel, of the APBA Football Club here. 2021 Vegas APBA Baseball Championship is in effect, so good rolling, gentlemen. Speaking about trying to get your wife to roll a game, how long did it take you to learn the master game vis-a-vis the basic game? And do you find when you're teaching kids that they pick up board games pretty quickly and enthusiastically?
Yeah, first, yeah, those are two really good questions. And speaking of, yeah, Chris White, I've never met him, never talked to him, but he makes awesome envelopes. He's the envelope guy. I'll have to partake. See, I can make my own too, but I'll probably give him some business at some point. But anyway, no, good luck to Vegas. That's a bucket list thing for sure. First, the master game. See, yeah, I did everything backwards. You know, if you're going to learn the game, you probably should learn the basic game first and then the master game. I looked at the two versions and I'm like, well, the master game that just had so many more options to it. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to force myself to teach it. Now, had I learned the basic game first and just looking at an APBA card and okay, when I roll the dice and what am I looking at and looking at the board, that was the biggest thing. I just learned when you learn APBA period is just training your eyes, like where to look, the card, the board, you know, and then, you know, that process just took me a really, really long time. But no, the master game, yeah, it's it's a learning curve for sure. I know people say, well, it takes too long or I can't do the math, and you know, to each his own. I guess for me, I guess I don't, when I come to the table to play, I don't sit there and say, okay, I have to play this game in 15 minutes. I guess there's some people that, yep, I have an hour and I want to get 3-4 games in. With me, I don't look at it that way. I just, you know, I'm going to play the game. And yeah, a master game, sometimes for me, it might take 40-45 minutes. If it's like a 10-8 game, other times I can roll a master game in 20 minutes if it's like a 2-0 game. So for me personally, yeah, I don't look at it as, okay, I need to get X amount of games in. Yeah, sure. My projects kind of go along at a snail's pace, but I'm fine with that. But the learning a game, yeah, it took a while, but for anybody that I know a lot of people have tried it too. And then I read a lot about what people, when they stick with it, you know, they really do enjoy it. But as far as board games with kids, that's a great question, Jeff. I'm so glad you asked that, because kids are, you know, they have everything they could ever want here. You know, I can't imagine. People will say, oh, kids these days, what about kids? You know, how can you teach them? I said, you know, let's talk about kids. Let's talk about how great kids are. And they kind of look at me like, you know, they have all this stimulation thrown at them. And we couldn't even dream of what, you know, when I grew up, I had 4 channels at home. I had ABC, CBS, NBC, and I had the PBS station. That was it, you know, and you didn't have internet, computer, none of that stuff. And these kids, there's so much thrown at them. But when you teach them a board game, I'll use that Las Vegas game that Ron shared with me. You take it out of the box and there's dice and there's cards and you teach them how to play. And then they sit in their groups of 3, 4, 5. I mean, one of the many things about kids that haven't changed, they're social creatures and they love just being able to play with each other and the camaraderie that they have. And when you play a board game with somebody, you know, when you're forced to make a decision, and the pressure's on you, and you know there's people left and right and they're watching you, and those are just great things for kids, even for adults. I love. Now with devices, there's lots of great things. I can play you know, with my brother, if I'm at home and he's at the lake, I can play a game of Scrabble with him and I don't need to be next to him. I get the whole tech thing. There's lots of good things there, but kids, in my experience as a teacher, you know, we do teach board games in school. You know, if as long as they're, you know, we're teaching skills, whether they're math related skills or critical thinking or whatever, kids love them, you know, as long as they, like anything else, if someone takes the time to teach you how to do it, you know, they're going to be all in. And so part of being a teacher too, I've learned you got to be a good salesman too. You know, if you're teaching kids, okay, you're teaching them figurative language and the importance of what idioms are or alliteration, you know, you kind of got to be, all right, this is why we're doing this, kids. Now, here we go. You got to be excited for it, because if you're not, well, then they're sure as heck aren't going to be excited for it. So, yeah, we play board games with our kids. Yeah, we give them a mix of the digital stuff too. I think just cutting kids off of it is not a good recipe, because of, let's face it, it's a digital world. They're going to need to be plugged in. And, but no, kids are great. In my experiences, I've taught 3rd grade and 6th grade. And both groups of kids I've taught with, they enjoy and love playing board games. And when they come and talk to me, like let's say I've taught a kid and it's 2 or 3 years down the line, and they'll say, do you still play Las Vegas in your class, or do you still let the kids play Sorry? And like, yeah, well, those are fun. I enjoyed those games. So it's like, all right, I must be doing something right.
For sure, for sure. Interesting. Would you have any kind of a shorthand now that you're, mastering the master game? Any kind of tips for any folks who might still have questions about how to graduate from the basic to the master, or somebody who hasn't played for years, played the old boards? We always talk about the old boards and maybe coming up to speed. I think a lot more baseball players are more familiar with the master game maybe than the football. I'm not sure about that. I mean, but just some shorthand tips for learning. I mean, I'd like to learn a little more baseball.
Yeah, no, I would just say, read carefully, stick with it, and ask questions. I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just to ask for help, and just make sure you're reading things. If you've, like I said, I did everything backwards. I learned the master game first and didn't know any knowledge of the basic game. So had I, if it's somebody that's played APBA before and you've taken a 30-year break, well then, yeah, just playing the basic game and I suppose getting your feet back wet into it's going to be helpful there too. But with the master game too, don't be afraid to, and I've done this with a few things. If you're playing solitaire, if you need to make some different tweaks in the game to not have it bombard you so much. Like for me, for an example, one thing I do at home, anytime a 12 result comes up, I just automatically call it an out, because there's things where, depending on if it's a pull to left person or a pull to right person, and based on what fielding number it is, it can be a hit. So like playing when I played those first 3 seasons, one thing I noticed about the master baseball game, there were way too many singles. And so I'm like, okay, that's one way I can maybe cut a few singles out here and there and just make it easier for me. Okay, anytime there's a 12, it's an out. Or if there's a guy on first, no matter what, a 12, it's going to be a double play. So like, don't be afraid to bend the rules or tweak things just to make it, playable for you. One thing, I know there's lots of people that do, and I've never taken the time to do it, but players that play the basic games, but then there's these other, twists of the master game or master game elements too. That would maybe be another alternative out there too. I know there's tons of different options out there. But yeah, I like it. I just love the decision making that goes on with it, Jeff. And yeah, ask questions, and that's another bucket list thing too. There's not really a good how-to master game video out there at all. That's a bucket list thing. In my last spring, with when COVID hit, I was teaching remotely from home, and I kind of became by force, I had to become a YouTuber and make lessons for my kids. So I got really good at making videos and things. And it's just, again, it's time. So that's definitely a bucket list thing to do. Is I know there's some videos out there that show people like playing a game, but there needs to be more out there like, okay, what is it you're doing to play the game? You know what I mean? So that's a bucket list thing of mine too. So you might have struck a nerve with me there. Maybe I'll, here's what I'm thinking, maybe when I get my project done, that might be something I might look at doing, spend some time and doing that. Cause yeah, there's not really you got to have somebody there with you to teach you through it. But if you're not, if there's nobody there, and that's the thing with APBA, it's kind of a niche thing. It's hard to find people that are right across the street that play. They don't, but we're out there, but we're just all kind of spread out.
For sure, for sure. Maybe we should have a tracking device on us to let people know we're in the proximity. Definitely do that.
Can I ask you,
Yeah, sure.
with your football, how did you get involved with APBA, and just, why football for you?
My dad was very much into football, and I was, he would always bet on the Vikings, Minnesota.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So, I was always an AFC guy. I just, the spectacle of it. I really didn't get into it fully till about 76. And reading the ad, I posted I actually have the Street and Smiths, where I have the ad that I clipped out for,
wow.
And I apparently also clipped out a Strato ad too. The Strato ad really wasn't as enticing. It looked a little more like the betting, ads, like we can help your odds and all that kind of stuff. Back to Vegas. So the APBA set was a lot more, I don't want to say austere, but a little more to the point, a little more visual, and it kind of just, it's, you want to see your guys on the field, and you want to, again, talk about reading the cards. That's really that magic. It sucks you in immediately, and it's aesthetic enough. It's more manageable, I think, than maybe the Strato card is a little bigger. It's like I don't know,
Okay.
4x4 and something like that. So so that's the short story, short-ish, but definitely if you do the tutorial videos, I mean, always helpful. That's a spot on point. Show people where you're going. Ron talked about that as well, in his videos. It's, why am I doing what I'm doing? I just taught my brother-in-law and niece a bit of football, and I did a lot of the pre-work for them in terms of setting the cards up, counting the points, having the starting lineup ready to go, and just kind of walking them through. You just start calling some plays, very simple stuff, and here's how you look things up, and it went pretty well. So, just walking people through and showing them, because it is, it takes some practice, whether it's, whatever the APBA game is, especially when it's all the big white boards, you've got to really know what chart to go on where, and eyeball that card, like you said, where to look. It's kind of like, in the Pointer Institute of Journalism, where you track the eyes on a page and see where people go, or a digital heat map. There are places your eye should go on the APBA card. So yeah, absolutely, Beau. If you need me, definitely got to do that tutorial, and if we can help in any way, or any other folks, for sure.
Yeah, no, and you said a lot of good things there, Jeff. Back to just, what I love about APBA is you can go down so many different paths. For me, initially, it was that sweet spot of the teams I really enjoyed, those late 80s A's. And then it kind of evolved to, okay, let's try this team. And my next project, I know what my next project is going to be. Another book. I haven't read it yet, but the 1922 St. Louis Browns.
Nice.
They finished one game behind the Yankees in 1922, and next year will be 2022, so it'll be 100 years since their team. So that'll be my next project. And and people that follow baseball, they're like, "Who are the Browns?" I'm like, "Oh, well, they moved to Baltimore in the early 50s." And, "Oh, really? St. Louis had two teams?" And so here's what I'll do. I'll be rolling a game, and I'll be looking like, okay, I'll just use the Yankees for an example, and I just finished a 3-game series with the 76 Yankees. Batting eighth, it'll be Willie Randolph. So I'll look at Willie Randolph, and then of course I get my phone out and be like, okay, when was his rookie year? And I know he played with the A's. What year was that? And then I just get lost in the sea of just facts and fun. And then I'm like, oh wait, I got to finish my game here. So that's what I love about it. I've learned so much about baseball by playing APBA than I ever did before. And there's times where I'll just take a box from the shelf, because I've been fortunate enough to accumulate quite a few seasons, and I'll just take a box off the shelf and just nose through the cards. I think that, and it's great. What I love about APBA players, in one thing about any replay thing you do, if you play APBA, you have to be organized. I'm not the most organized person, so in some ways it's helped me stay organized in other parts of my life, but it's kind of clunky. You got charts and you got cards, and then you got to find a way, how are you going to score your games, and so you got to be organized. You got to have a space kind of set aside. So first and foremost, that's the big thing. If you're going to do any kind of a tournament or replay, you got to be organized with your materials. But one thing I've noticed, I've been able to buy some sets through the secondary market, and people that play APBA, they take good care of their stuff, which is, this 76 set I got, the guy I bought it from had used it he'd used it in like the late 70s, and it sat for 40 years, and take them out of and they're like brand new. It's like, this is cool. So that's probably a great thing if people are gonna, if they're hard up for money or whatever, if they're looking for a certain set. And I'm a firm believer, support the company, but if someone's looking for something that maybe the company doesn't have anymore, people that on the secondary market really take good care of their products and their things. And APBA itself makes a great product. It's stood the test of time for sure. So But yeah, someday when the time, the baseball game or the football game looks fun, the golf game looks like a great time. Have not dabbed into any of that, but I'm going to stick with the baseball game in the short term, and that fills my plate enough here with the time that I have for sure. So
you raised a couple of good points. I was going to ask what is on your wish list, and you talked about, people don't know, it's like with football, people didn't know there was a Chicago Cardinals before they, et cetera. It's interesting though, but ultimately it's kind of everything is on your wish list because, as you say, it really draws you in. I mean, it is that history and the fact that you can go to a set and grab a box in 1912, 1932. You can play the 27 and 77 Yankees if you want, just for whatever, and the minute you start looking, it's like, who is this guy? But what is on your wish list? And yes, the aftermarket is a great place.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I have to tell my brother Ben and I, we've for the last like 4 or 5 years have been kind of on a mission to get every set. And I think we're only like 5 or 6 sets away from having all the baseball sets. So he's got the master list. I don't have it in front of me right now, but no, I guess we wanted to just, that was kind of a wish list for us to do. And it's funny because now when you get a certain age, people like, oh, what do you want for your birthday? And they don't know what to buy you because they're like, well, what if I buy you a shirt and it's too small or whatever? I get APBA gift cards all the time. So that's kind of, like now I've got like, $75 I have right now that I just got from my mom. So, I'll be putting that towards one of those seasons that I need. So I guess, yeah, I'm content. I have got so many seasons. I wish there were maybe 30 hours in a day instead of 24. That's probably my wish list because then I'd have more time to play. But I do like the company came out here a few years ago with these World Series sets that you can buy. So that's a great thing. I think it's super because, yeah, let's say you're really fond to a team and you don't want the whole set, but maybe you want to just replay that series, or maybe you just want to pit, okay, the 1961 Yankees against the 98 Yankees. Well, you buy those two series, now you've got those teams. And the playability with it, the fact that the game, started in 1950 or 51 or whatever, and it relatively the game engine itself has not changed. Probably my biggest wish list is, who, not for things that I need, but who are going to be those, if and who are going to be the players, the people that are going to continue to play. That's kind of a scary thing because kids, I know with baseball and sports in general, kids are instant gratification is such a big thing. And let's be honest, turning a baseball game on and watching it on TV or even going to a game, for some people, it's a chore. So my wish would be that, getting younger people into the game, to keep it going, because at some point I'm going to be 80 years old and, I'm going to want to share this game with people. And I'm hoping that there's going to be a younger generation that'll play, but just, seeing the APBA Facebook baseball page, I've been a part of that for probably 7-8 years, and seeing it go, I think when I joined, there was like, 1,000 people, or maybe not even that. Now there's like 4,700 people on it. So there's people out there that play it. But yeah, it's my kids, I've played with them a little bit. They're kind of lukewarm to it, but I think when they get older, they'll, once they just kind of understand the history of the game more and things, they'll want to play more. But they're kids. I'm not going to live vicariously through my own kids. I want them to do what they want to do, right?
For sure. For sure.
They still have to, clean their room and do their homework and, all that stuff. But yeah, just the playability of the game. And I love seeing these tournaments pop up. I love seeing what people post. It's and just the people that you get together with and you meet with them, and just through my whole ordeal too, I've had so many people reach out to me, and I just wanted to give thanks to those people and just the community in general, because it's amazing how, you might do some little act and it might not mean the world to you, but it would mean the world to the person you're that you're giving that the well wishes or the good vibes. And if I'm not playing the game, I mean, I do live vicariously through the other posts. I love reading about the different projects and different things that people do, and the questions people have, and it's a great time. so much fun.
For sure. You said the magic words a little bit back, game engine. Have you compared, done a lot of comparison with some other versions of baseball, football, whatever, what have you?
No, like I said, I never heard of APBA and I'd never heard of Strat. I know those are kind of the two big ones, but I laugh because I consider myself a baseball junkie and a board game junkie. And like I said, we played the championship baseball game and then the CAD code, the disc game. And I remember writing to the company and we got a bunch of seasons for that. But then the late 80s hit and we got our first Nintendo and then we're playing RBI baseball, we're playing triple play, we're playing Madden football, and so board games kind of just went to the wayside. So no, but in compared just to those games I played, APBA is by far the best. I don't know any players that play Strat personally. I've heard that's a good game as well too, but I've never seen the game. I've never played it. So I guess I don't really have anything to compare it to, but as far as I'm concerned, if I'm happy doing what I'm doing, I'm just going to stay in my lane and keep playing APBA. But yeah, if somebody were to say, hey, you want to try it? For sure. I would try it. I'll try anything once.
So, so now, and bringing up, going back to the video game thing too. I've been seeing a gentleman playing with the early '04 Madden. You can pull in those vintage teams. It was a very
Oh, you
brief
can.
window.
Okay.
It was, but and the jersey names are wrong. The numbers are wrong. You have to kind of reprogram it, or you can find, I think, some downloadable rosters. There's
Yeah.
a gentleman's been playing those, but I found a couple of older Madden '01 and '02, and they've got some fictitious teams in there. I know they rate the teams. I just saw the 2021 Madden ratings, and they rate the teams, top to bottom. There's a point system, but do you feel that the team feel, character, or accuracy comes through in your experience with video sports gaming?
Uh, yes and no. I remember playing when I was young, a computer game we played, a couple of them, Earl Weaver baseball and Tony La Russa baseball. Those were on the computer. And yeah, those you could kind of get that feel for, I guess. And I haven't played, it's been probably 10 years since I've last really got into the Maddens. Do you play Madden? Do you still play?
I'm trying to get back into it. I need a new controller because one of them's just get bashed in. But
Yeah,
and you've got
Xbox,
to.
what do you play? Xbox, PlayStation?
It's PS2, yeah, the old.
Okay. Yeah, no, because I had a PlayStation, PS1, and PS2, and PS3, and that was kind of when my gaming I put off to the side. But no, like playing video games. We used to have there was probably a group of 10 of us. We called them Madden Bowls. And that's, people do that all across the country. But yeah, we had like 25 of them, and we always, the guys that played, no matter what the ratings were, we just gravitated towards our teams. Like my brother was always Cardinals, and this is back, like when the late '90s, early 2000s. Vince Tobin was coaching them, and Jake Plummer, Larry Sanders, that crew. I was a big New York Giants fan, so this is before Kerry Collins came. Danny Cannell was the quarterback. Gary Brown was the running back. My other friend Adam, he was always the Vikings, and we always were mad because the Vikings were just good with Moss and Cunningham and Carter and Robert Smith. And I had another buddy of mine, he was a Panthers fan. So, with those video games, yeah, like if I pick up a game, if I was going to play, I would still gravitate towards those teams that I followed, whether, if it was an older video game or even today, I'd probably still play. If I'm gonna play MLB The Show, I'd probably be the A's just because. So the visual part of the games now, I mean, it's so stinking realistic. That's what's so cool about it. Like MLB The Show, they've got some of the older ballparks. They've got the polo grounds on there, and it's like that is really cool. And so yeah, it's I think my kids, like I said, they're 12. My boys are 12, 9, and 6, and we've talked about maybe getting a video game system here for Christmas for them, and that would kind of maybe be my segue with them to get them hooked into the sports gaming stuff, and then maybe down the line, okay, we're at the lake and at the lake cabin, I bring APBA with, hey, you want to roll a game of APBA? Okay, sure. So, but the games are fun. The sports game, I mean, they're great. It's just, yeah, you know, it takes a lot of time, just like APBA does. But again, with APBA, it's great. I don't have to plug it in. I can put it in my bag. I can, you know, but yeah, no, it's what I always liked about the video games too, the newer ones, is they have all the uniform options. You know, you can go through and, okay, if I'm going to be I was a big Houston Oilers fan, so I'd go to the Titans and, all right, I'm going to be the Oilers uniforms and some of those things. So I think they've done a good job of trying to bridge that history to the current game or versions of the game anyways. So there's no perfect game out there, but there's a lot of fun to be had for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. The lake house, I mean, you don't have to plug APBA in. So that's a great thing. You've showed a couple of great books. I'm just curious what your favorite baseball movie or movies are.
Oh man, that's a great question. Yeah, you got all kinds of great questions, Jeff. Man, you hit my sweet spot here. Baseball movies. The Natural sticks out as one I like just because the story. That's with Robert Redford in 1984. And later I found out it was based off of a book, and the ending to the book and the movie are totally different, which the movie ending is a happier ending and the book version is a very tragic ending. But that The Natural would be one. Major League is a great story. I always liked that movie. Field of Dreams, another good one, with Kevin Costner. Those will probably be my three favorite baseball movies. But as far as other movies, Rudy, I'll always love the movie Rudy. That's a good one. I'll watch that one once a year. Hoosiers is another good movie, basketball movie there. And yeah, I've learned through this injury too that if I take a nap or when I go to bed, I'll my phone and I'll just put an earbud in and I'll go to YouTube and find an old football game or a baseball game, and just that white noise kind of gets me to sleep. And so I probably have more fun that now, just going through and, oh my gosh, check out, it's the 85 AFC or NFC title game, or, hey, here's Ken Anderson in the Bengals beating the Chargers in 1981. And, and it's funny because I'll watch a game and my kids will be like, Dad, where's the score? How come it doesn't show how many yards the quarterback has? Because they just see the game, and there's no like crawl on the bottom. And it's like, and then when they do show a stat, like the score, it takes up like half of the screen and they're like laughing at it. I'm like, that's how it was back then. And then they will sit down and then they'll ask questions. And then they'll sit for 15 minutes and then they're like, okay, I'm going to go do something else. Cause all these players, they don't know any of these players, it's all abstract to them. So, but yeah, there's lots of good stuff out there. If you got the time and you dig a little bit, you can find a lot of good stuff to read or watch. That's for sure.
Interesting. Yeah, it was early days, those very old, almost dot matrix looking or kind of italic sans graphics. And, they'd show the actual camera. They'd cut the little camera in on the up, so you'd see the actual, there's 5 minutes left or 2 minutes left. It's not like all, it's like, man, yeah, it was rough going those days. Now you're listening to the old games. You said it's kind of like white noise. And, it's interesting because you might remember about, I forget, it was 82, 83. I think it was a Jets Dolphins game. They experimented without no commentary, find the word, on the game. And it was just kind of like, nothing there. And people that died quickly. I just wonder if by listening to all these games, do you call your own games when you're playing? Are you one of us who
that's
just,
funny. I'd love to do that. But the thing is, my window of playing most of the time before this, I'll play at night because I get the kids to bed. My wife's in bed. Like I said, I'm kind of a night owl. So if I roll any games, it's usually it's between the window of like 10:30 at night and midnight. So I don't want to wake the kids or wake the wife or anything. So I do in my head a lot. But like now today, when my wife took the kids and they're out at the zoo and they're going to do some swimming and stuff. So I'll probably roll a game and then I will. I'll play by play, and back to the gentleman that got me into the game, my wife's uncle, Doug, and we talk about that a lot. I just saw him this weekend and he's replaying, I think, the 77 Orioles. And he just goes, that's just the fun part. I replay the game and talk about it. And it's so fun. And watching these old games too, listening to, Vince Scully and Joe Garagiola doing some of the baseball games. Dick Enberg, I really enjoyed Dick Enberg as a football announcer. Al Michaels, of course, has been around for a very long time. Don Criqui, you name it. There's all these. Dick Stockton's another one. I mean, yeah, part of it is the people that call the games, and that's what's been fun when you lay down and you don't watch it, but you just listen to it. You pick up so much more, so that's been kind of interesting. But yeah, some of those commentators, when you watch a game or follow a team, I'll give you one more book plug, a book I just read. Dick Bramer, he's the play-by-play guy of the Minnesota Twins, and he wrote a book about his life. And he and Bert Blyleven called Twins games for a long time. Bert Blyleven just retired from that, but he's from Minnesota, yeah, he's a good hometown guy, but he's not like, you want somebody that's going to call the game and just call the game for what it is, and let the color guy do the commentary. I think there's so much more of that now, where everyone's given their 2 cents, whereas like Vince Scully would call a game, or a moment would happen, and then he would just shut up and you would just hear the noise and you would watch it unfold. You know what I mean?
For sure. I mean, the idea of when they started getting a lot more instant replay and all that, it's, understandable. I think it's been good for whatever game. It's good to have that, but then it becomes this, it's it's a little much. It's like focusing on that thing. I was going to think of a couple of news events, or or just kind of showing it or playing it over and over and over and over again and talking. But it's like, let's just settle this and enjoy that moment. Just let it be what it is. And talking about the Olympics going on, those great Olympic moments where you just kind of let it simmer, because it's so, the emotion is inherent in the moment there. So
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
This is great. I think I'm going to make this a requirement from everyone from now on. You're doing such great work with the book recommendations. Everyone from now on is just going to have to bring a stack of books. I don't have to read anything or review it. I mean, everyone's got it handled here. It's awesome. It's going to be
But no, I'm glad I could help out. No, I know I don't, being a teacher, I don't read nearly as much as I should. I do read a lot, but it's more, I read the paper, I read articles, and that's basically what I read. But if it's something I'm really passionate about, I'll pick a book up and read it. And of course, I've had some more time this year, but no, like I said, APBA, I had them laying here, and these books, and so much of it's because of APBA. It's allowed me to learn more about the game. And then, so I picked up, like I said, that Lyman Bostock book. I read that. I'm like, I have to do a season of it. I got to do one, and learning about his life. And oh my goodness, it still just, it gives me chills of what happened. And then, the St. Louis Browns book, I'm like, okay, I'm going to read about this. So then when I do that replay, of course, I wasn't 100 years ago. So when I pick up those cards and start playing with those Browns, I'll like, okay, here's Ken Williams, or here's George Sisler, or here's, Pat Collins, the catcher. And I'll know more about the team when I play. So, because if you don't have a connection, it's just, it's just busy work. But if you have a connection with the cards and with that team, then okay, it's it makes it so much more enjoyable. So yeah, books are good. I love reading, and there's a lot of good books out there too. I know that people could share. So happy to do my part, Jeff. And you've done a great job here. I really appreciate you having me on. This has really, really meant a lot to talk with you today.
Oh, well, thank you, sir. I mean, everyone wishes you the best for sure. The community sticks together here, no matter the sport. And I think we just want to mention the soccer and hockey games also on the anyone's bucket list here. I've got them. We've seen them in play. They're great games as well for folks who want to be aware of the entire spectrum, and the out of print APBA games: basketball, bowling, and saddle racing.
Have you played the soccer game yourself? Have you played the soccer game?
We did a conference in Canton at the Football Hall of Fame, and John Cochran came up and did a great demo for us, and he's been doing demos. And there's a tournament this year. Jack Dolan is running that, and I've seen it in play. You've got clutch points at the end where you can kind of do some more run. Ron Emsch talked about that as well. I have not personally gone through an entire game, but I get it. It feels like it flows pretty well from what I've recall.
No, I'd forgotten about that. My 12-year-old son is a big soccer guy. We don't have soccer as a sport in our school because we're kind of small, but he does a lot. Well, he likes to watch MLS and this Olympic stuff. So when you mentioned that, I had forgotten about that. So that might be something I might have to try with him, maybe get him hooked on that. The community here has been wonderful. And yeah, I'm just glad to be a part of it. And so thankful I've got so many great people in my corner, Jeff. It's unbelievable.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Beau, for your insights, and be well, sir. And we hope to check in on you soon. Obviously, you keep us posted on the Facebook pages. Your blog again is Minnesota APBA.
Yep. And like I said, I don't post every day. I might go a couple months without posting, but my first post, kind of what I just kind of talked to you about, just kind of my gaming history and just kind of how I fell into APBA, and got some summaries of some of the replays I've done, but more so it's kind of selfishly for me, so I have somewhere to go back and look and see what I have done. But yeah, the more I play APBA, the more I kind of get hooked with the what if situations, that kind of it's really intriguing, and not that I live my life. Well, what if I would have said no to marrying my wife, or what if I would have, those are things that obviously I wouldn't want to, you can't live your life in regret. But with APBA, you can go back and change things or see, okay, well, what would have happened if this trade would have been made, or we wouldn't have made that trade, and then you can talk about it and share about it. And then it's funny because I'll post something and then someone will email me and be like, hey, that's really cool, or they'll have a question, or they'll have a tip on, hey, you know what, you should play this person for those 76 Royals instead of this person, and how are the Rangers doing, or whatever. And so that's what's great, that there's other people. I'm like, there's other people like me out there, that are into this stuff, and I know there's thousands of us. So that's strength in numbers, my friend. That's what I found out with APBA for sure.
That's right. And it's a good point too. Document. Ron does it with his videos, several hundred videos there. Every blog counts. Ken Hurd's Love Life, and APBA baseball, of course, Tom's APBA blog. Jim, you mentioned Jim's APBA barn. I'm going to be talking with a gentleman, John Storr, who does a classic Sports Gamer, I think is his site. We'll lock that in here. But so yeah, I mean,
with you mentioned Ken Hurd, he lived I went to college in Bemidji, Minnesota, and he had lived up there for a time, and we had connected online, and then he out of the blue one day he called me at work, and because I told him where I taught, and he called me, and we had a 2-hour conversation. And I know he's kind of been through the ringer with life and things the last few years, but his blog, mine's kind of like that, where I throw more life in there than just the baseball stuff there too. But the APBA blog is kind of the blog, I guess. Tom does a great job there, and I've sent a few. He does a great job. He'll have these monster cards or weird card Wednesdays, and I've sent him a few, and he's like, I remember one of the first times with Tom, because he does terrible card Tuesday, and I found a card, and I said, is this terrible enough? And he just responds in big letters, absolutely terrible, perfect. I can't remember what the card was, and so it's just like with it's finding the humor. Like, okay, here's this card that's terrible, but then this person is a way better athlete than I could have ever dreamed of, and here I'm laughing at the card because it's so bad, but yet whoever the person was would be way better than I could have ever imagined. So it is what it is, but it's fun. There's so many ways to enjoy it.
It's funny. I'm glad you mentioned both those. The Herb Washington card, he actually has those. He had it as a monster card Monday and a weird card Wednesday. So it's not really that weird at all. But so I check.
That is funny. Oh my gosh. Yep. So.
Well, awesome, Beau. Thank you so much. Any last words for the APBA community here while you're on the mend, and where you're going to plan to be? You'll report out your Twins replay, and you've got your next project set up.
Again, thanks, just Jeff having me. This is great. You reached out to me, and I'm going to catch the rest of the podcasts you've had on Spotify. I'm a big Spotify guy, so perfect. I'm going to listen to the rest of them. It's fun. It's fun just to listen to people. So thanks for giving people an avenue to share their story, and just, talk about the great products that APBA provides and just replaying. But yeah, in terms of just playing, if you've got an idea or something, just go try it and go do it. And as far as I've learned just through this whole ordeal, if you've got something in life you want to try, boy, life is flimsy. You think you're in control and you have no idea. So just, live with no regrets. And, it's, you can plan for the future as much as you want, but you got to enjoy and savor every moment that you have too, because, like I said, it can be taken from you. And I think I appreciated life more before this, but now, I mean, it's just, uh, I'm thankful for the great people around me, and just go out there and enjoy your life and be happy, be kind, and stay in your lane. If it's none of your business, then just let it be. And I think sometimes we want to get involved a little too much. And I've learned I'm happiest when I'm in my lane and I'm taking care of the people I need to take care of, and having some simple pleasures in life too. It's easy to keep up with the Joneses, but that only gets you so far. You can't take the stuff with you when you're gone. So just enjoy life every day.
Well said, sir. Well said, sir. Hey, have a very special birthday, and it's been a real pleasure talking to you.
You too, Jeff. I appreciate it. And we'll keep in touch down the line. I'll be following your page and everything you do. You do a great job. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Be well.